Merit Insurance, and been handling the district insurance here for about 12 years now. Yeah. So a great group of people, and congratulations on getting together in a forum like this, and the volunteers that participate here. Sarah, you said you're just a volunteer. I didn't know you're a volunteer, which is great. It's a commendable and admirable thing that you all do. I have 2 children. We have 4 children, but 2 are at Skyline right now. So it's a great community, and you want to be doing all the right things from a safety perspective and all those type of things. So we can talk about that today, and how the district insurance helps protect the PTO and all the things you do, and where it applies and where it may not apply.
And the reason we engage with Kyle and Daily Merit is that this is something that our Board of Education doesn't have policy on. So we engage with the professional services, and each year Kyle and his group go out and find the best rates for us for our district.
So I think we should just start with the basics, right?
Yeah.
Like what are the aspects of coverage that are out there for the PTOs, nonprofits, for the PTOs, and then how it works with if incidents occur and claims happen.
Yeah. We're going to start with the district covers youth board. Now, it'd be easier if I just probably draw a little diagram here if these work. So if we have, we call it the what? PTO organizing committee. Is that who you are?
PTO council.
PTO council. So you got perfect. So we got the PTO council, and then as we had met and talked a little bit about this before. Under here we have all the 32 PTOs. Is that correct?
Yes, and PTSOs.
Okay.
So the older or the schools that have like middle school grades and high school grades, they integrate students into that organizing body. So that's where the S comes in.
All right, perfect. So that's kind of everybody in here, and then over here we have Ann Arbor Public Schools, apps. All right, and they have an insurance policy. All right. So here's how this works from an insurance perspective. The district has a policy that covers all the schools and the teachers and the volunteers and what have you. In the definition of who's an insured for the district includes the PTO and all its volunteers and all its members and all its board members and past and current and forever. So you're defined as an insured, and it has to do with you're defined as an insured for all of the business that the PTO does in relationship to the district. So this meeting right now that everyone traveled to come here today in your own vehicle, and let's say you got in an accident on the way here and you killed somebody or whatever, you would fall under the Ann Arbor Public Schools district insurance policy for non-owned and hired automobile coverage, for example. So the easiest way to remember this is anything that you do for the district, that your quarterly meetings, your weekly meetings, whatever it is from an operations perspective, you are going to be insured under the district policy. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So let me lay out one thing before you ask a question, because I'm going to show you what isn't insured. So over here, the PTO may decide to do an event or engage.
One quick correction. So there's not this right now. I would say this line goes directly to here at this point in time.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's fine. It doesn't matter. It would.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's fine. That can be put in here. That can be put on a master policy.
It could
or whatever.
be.
Yeah. It's okay. So what wouldn't be covered is, say, this group here decided they wanted to do something with the Slaney PTOs and the Saline PTOs, and you're going to set up your own event and go do something. Kind of non-district related. It's more PTO related, right? Follow me? So if you had an event like that, the district is not going to cover you for an event like that. So you would be, if you didn't have insurance in your own PTO, you would be what we call bare or uncovered if something happened, right? So in the way you protect yourself with in this event is you have insurance here. Your own kind of standalone insurance program for the PTO. And in a lot of your cases, for easy numbers, let's say all 32 organizations go out and buy insurance. And they buy it from PTO Today or whoever they get it from, right? And that's how you would protect yourself in that situation. The other thing that you could happen here is this, these events. There could be an event here that you want to hold that is in relation to the Ann Arbor Public Schools. So it's an Ann Arbor Public Schools event. Say it's the ice cream social and there's going to be 3 schools be involved in that or whatever. Then that event and what's going to happen with the event and approximately how many people would attend the event and if you're going to have any outside vendors there or whatever, etc. You submit that event, date, time, whatever it's going to be, with all the particulars to the district, and the district would approve, or not approve, but for the most part they approve those events.
We don't really have a formal process for that.
Right, because most of them are, again, your ice cream social, it's a fundraiser or whatever. These are things that are generally a part of the PTO, not in question, and typically are either insured or would be approved to be insured by the district. In which case, the district policy would cover this entire event, right? And all the PTO members and their volunteers and everything that's involved in that event. All right. Does that make sense?
So
Questions?
just to clarify, so take an ice cream social, for example.
Yes.
So you say the PTO would be covered, all the volunteers. Would it include participants or, like the students and their families who attended the event? If, say, let's say a student was playing on the playground at the event and, broke an arm or.
Right. So if it's a district approved event and you're at the PTO and there's an injury, a third party injury, and then so that's third party bodily injury or property damage that occurs, then the district policy is typically going to respond to that. Now in the medical part of it, that's a more complicated thing because there's people that have private insurance and that's got to respond first, and if they don't have private insurance and there's medical pay, and then if there's augment pay, then it's a little bit of a more claims take on their own characteristics, I guess is the best term for it.
And our legal department would review each case on a case-by-case.
Yeah, but that's exactly what would happen there. Yeah. Now, if you have a third party injured there, and because they fell down and they just fell down because they're clumsy, and they sue you, then the district insurance is going to respond to extract yourselves or protect the PTO and everyone else in the suit, even though it's frivolous. So even though it's frivolous, you still have defense cost coverage, which is the majority of the cost of the claim because attorneys are $300 an hour. They like to drag stuff out when it comes to insurance claims. So that's how that would work.
So this just might be a matter of semantics, but aren't most events that occur at schools, like an ice cream social or the senior all-night party, it's a school event that the PTO just happens to help out with, right?
Yeah.
It's not a PTO event, it's
That's
a
fine.
school event, so.
Sure.
Okay, because to me
Yeah.
that would automatically be covered by school insurance.
Absolutely. Yeah, if the PTO's involved there, they're considered volunteers, they're listed as insureds on the policy, so yes, they'd be covered.
But in some cases, they ask for a separate policy
Yeah.
from the, bounce house people or.
Whenever you have any vendor come into one of our buildings, you need a certificate of insurance. So that vendor must have protection, they must have liability.
Right, so the example of that is, let's say it's an ice cream social. This is a great question. Let's say this is the ice cream social, it's always approved. And Washtenaw Dairy is going to come in and provide all the ice cream, they're going to serve it. And the ice cream's tainted, and 38 people get violent diarrhea, and they all got to go to the ER because the ice cream was bad, or wasn't refrigerated, or whatever. Who's going to be on the hook for that? Well, it should be Washtenaw Dairy, because they should have a policy that protects them against situations like that. Now, if you didn't get that certificate of insurance and have the district or the PTO named as an additional insured here, they're gonna go up here, and the district's gonna be forced to pay that. So this is what we call risk transfer. So if you got Washtenaw Dairy down here, making a mistake with their ice cream, and it's, there's $85,000 worth of medical bills to pay, this insurance, the Washtenaw Dairy insurance, is gonna pay first. And when all their limits get exhausted, then the next level would be up to the district. So it's what we call risk transfer. So they've taken this risk, transferred it to the persons that are providing it, and then that's the first layer of response. And then once that gets exhausted, then you come up here. Now, come down here, if Washtenaw Dairy is doing this on a standalone deal, you do the same thing, just to govern your own protection and practices, right? You just ask Washtenaw Dairy for a certificate of insurance, protecting your PTO, right? For an unrelated event, or maybe you're doing a cancer drive, and again, with Ypsilanti schools, and Washtenaw Dairy is going to be there serving ice cream, so you want to make sure they have a certificate. So as Ann said, anyone that comes on the facilities here, whether it's a food vendor or not in the case of PTO, but electricians, plumbers, tradespeople that come onto the site, you want to make sure that they have certificates of insurance, so you can go after them when they're involved. Yeah.
What about for purchase goods? So say we purchase ice cream from Washtenaw Dairy, do you automatically assume
No.
the risk?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. That's why I said no, is that you wouldn't ask them for a certificate. So you just like buying stuff from Myers or whatever, The situation there is something did occur. Let's say you bought a whole bunch of pulled pork from Myers or something like that, and you served it, and got sick. Then what's gonna happen is the district insurance company is gonna pay for those situations, and then the district insurance company is gonna go after Myers and get that money. That's called subrogation. So they subrogate against the faulty party. But there wasn't an insurance certificate in place there, so that's how that works.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Ann Arbor Public Schools has their own insurance.
Yep.
And then PTSO also has their own insurance independent of Ann Arbor Public Schools.
That I don't know.
Not necessarily.
Each individual PTO group has decided whether or not they should be covered,
Okay.
based on the research that they've done on their own
Sure.
at this point in time. Okay, raise your hands if you know whether your PTO or PTSO is covered, has insurance coverage. Okay, so everybody else, either you don't know or you don't
have it.
have it.
Wasn't it based, however, on them thinking that because Ann Arbor Public Schools did not cover them?
That's where we're going. We're going in that direction right now.
Okay.
We're going to be heading.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand these events that are not covered by the district insurance.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's an outside event, maybe with other PTOs.
Or whatever it is. I mean, anything that isn't district related. So doesn't have to do with the students at the school. It's just like you as a group of PTO people that are getting together to do something, go on a fun walk.
But then we shouldn't really represent ourselves as the PTO in that situation, should we?
Fine.
But there's really nothing
Yeah.
stopping you as an organization from doing something away from Ann Arbor Public Schools.
Especially like in the holiday season, like if you're going to be having a PTO or like a PTO sponsored or organized event that's going to be contributing to like a soup kitchen or something like that, when you have
Okay.
volunteers
Right.
going. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that's going to be happening.
And then Nick is
Because I
you're
was
the
thinking,
PTO.
well, if
Yeah.
we're raising money for the school with an event with other people, that should still fall under, okay. So you're
Yeah.
talking about the PTO doing something that benefits others.
Unrelated event other than benefiting that of the district. Although even it's kind of hard to kind of wrap around your mind, because in the great example she just gave about the soup kitchen, you want to have the fact that the PTO is it's like an involvement thing. It's a marketing thing, or it's a community thing, and you want the people to know, all the people that are in the district and all the PTOs and all the families, whatever, that hey, we're involved in the community and we do these things. But they're not always in direct relationship to the school itself. right?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right behind you.
So you're mostly talking about one-time events. What about events that are recurrent, such as Science Olympiad,
Covered.
math clubs,
Covered.
Math club even?
math clubs, math Olympiad? And their volunteers would be covered?
Covered.
Because we've had an issue with our school where one of our math Olympiad events, and the district came back to us and said, we're sorry, this is a PTO event and you are not covered under our district policy.
What did you have at the event?
What was that, I'm sorry?
What did you have at the event? Anything in particular? Did you have like outside vendors coming to the event?
No,
Or,
it
What was
was
the claim?
and what was the situation? How long ago was that?
2 or 3 years ago.
And you had a math Olympiad at your school, and the PTO was organizing it?
Yes. So
And-
we can discuss it later. I
Sure.
just,
Sure, I just want to go through it.
I
Why
just-
why did the district decline it as
why,
a-
I don't know. I mean, I was
Okay,
coming in on this. but-
yeah. So I would say in that particular situation, I would say that, I don't know all the aspects of what's at your event. Now, if you had an inflatable there or something, for people to jump around in, that's going to be an issue. But if it's just a math Olympiad and the district says, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, covered. Rebecca?
2 questions. You said vendors coming in. What about vendors who are donating their services at your event and perhaps giving you a cut?
So,
what they're-
yeah, that's,
Yeah,
now you- now you-
still want a certificate.
yeah.
So like Ray's Hot, was it Ray's or Red's?
Raise Red Hot?
Yeah, Ray
Um,
comes to our
Yeah.
spring or summer ice cream social as well as like the fall. And
Donates.
they don't, people have to buy the hot dogs, but we
Right.
get like, $1 off of every hot dog.
Right.
They're there as a third, so,
You would need a certificate of insurance.
and then what if they donated everything and they're there?
Well, you still need a certificate of insurance.
So, and things like, we want Starbucks to donate coffee for welcome back for the parents and the teachers. We're picking up the coffee, they're donating it. That would be donated goods?
Yeah.
So it would be just the same as purchase goods?
Well, a little bit different there because it's, you're going to a, you're going to a Starbucks location, they're donating, coffee or whatever. It's different than going into Myers. Going into Myers and you're buying, some pork and you're buying some chips and you're buying you're buying all this stuff, or Myers is donating it all. I mean, that's a different story. That's a little bit different than an individual business that says, hey, I want to give you $50,000 worth of hot dogs, and I'm going to have my people on site to serve them,
Well,
or whatever.
It's, I guess, from a perspective of you're a PTO and you want to raise money and provide like a fun event for your school. But it's costs money and you don't want to ask your parents to always be, please bring more money, to spend more money for fun, for the school, to build community. So you call a bunch of vendors and say, hey, we're having something, can you donate?
Right.
And then they say, maybe, okay, yeah. Oh, by the way, you have to insure us too. They
Right.
provide a certificate of insurance that indemnifies the.
Right.
And they're used to it, and they
Very
usually don't
common.
have a problem.
Okay.
It's very,
It doesn't
very
cost us
common in
anything.
today's business
Yeah.
world.
Okay.
Yeah. I look at requests for insurance certificates probably 7 to 8 times a day.
I make them 7 or 8 times a year.
It's amazing how many are being requested.
And then the second part of my question is, maybe you covered this, I was running from another actual PTSO meeting to get here. The district approved or a district related, do you have to get district approval or is your principal's approval enough?
No, it is district, right? The principal should be coming to the district. or-
If the principal has approved an event, then the district says, okay, unless
Okay.
it's something out of the scope that we
The
would.
principal is an authorized party, authorized individual to approve PTO and school events.
Mhm.
Yes.
So it doesn't sound like that many things that a PTO typically does falls outside of the umbrella policy, but
Correct.
just for the example of it does, if some do choose to get their own insurance, just can you real quickly kind of outline what that is so it's a clearer picture
Yeah.
of like what would that look like?
Right.
And
So basically if you're carrying, like, it's almost like any other business, right? Because you have general liability, so you have the general liability exposure for third-party property damage or bodily injury, right? So someone comes into the PTO office, let's just say it's off-site, it's not at the school, it's not at one of the schools, but you have an off-site office, someone comes in there, falls, smashes their head open, that's a GL claim, right? So you'd have a general liability of 1 million per occurrence and 2 million aggregate. And then in this GL, you would want to make sure that you have sexual abuse and molestation coverage, either silent or specifically included. Silent is the broadest because if it isn't excluded, it's covered in our world, right? It's very important coverage to have. A lot of the PTO policies do not have this, by the way, because they don't. Not a lot of insurance companies have a lot of confidence in the controls that are wrapped around the people that are volunteering and or are running the PTOs. Now, if you have volunteer screening, which I'm assuming you do, and screen, everyone here screened from a volunteer basis from state looking at sexual abuse, molestation, or whatever, because you're around kids and stuff like that. That's awesome. If you don't, that makes that tough. That's why a lot of PTO companies don't have it.
I don't know if you guys are filling out the volunteer forms with your schools, but those should be done annually.
The screening,
That volunteer form, and then you check it against the state of Michigan.
So
We
every
get
person
from our
that volunteers for your PTO, like you're talking about a high school, hundreds of volunteers?
We run them
No
all.
way.
We run them all.
You may run them all, but we don't turn them all in.
That's fine.
We want you to.
Do your best to get in when you can get in.
If you're just going to show up at the event and take the tickets, but if you're in the schools, those are the ones we want. So if you're just out in the concession stand, you don't need to do a volunteer form for that. It's the ones that are going to be in the buildings.
working directly with the
Yes,
students?
yes.
And I'd say anyone who's like a PTO president or whatever should be.
Yeah, they really should be running.
That's a district thing, huh?
Is that anytime that students are left alone with somebody who doesn't have a
Absolutely.
background check, or is it in general?
General regardless, really.
It's general, but we especially want.
Especially if there's.
Yeah.
The only time I've seen a form is for Science Olympiad, when I coach Science Olympiad.
It's the
I
same
have it
form.
out.
If you've done it for Science Olympiad, you're covered for the entire year, for everything.
Okay. But I think that's the only time I've ever been asked to fill out a form.
Yeah, we want them every year.
It's in our sexual abuse measure, can I get through this real quick? But yes.
So I'm not quite sure what you mean by silent.
Okay, so in an insurance form, everything is covered unless it's specifically excluded. So if the general liability is 1 million per in the aggregate, and it does not exclude sexual abuse and molestation, then we assume that it's covered. And the legal world couldn't come back and say, well, no, we don't cover sexual abuse. So we exclude it, so therefore it's covered, right? So it's either specifically included or it's silent. So that makes that very broad. So it's best if it's silent. Yes?
Maybe things have changed since I was active at the elementary level, but the thing that confuses me is an awful lot of PTO volunteers do not volunteer at the school with children during the school day, and those are the only circumstances where we're usually asked to fill out the screening form. So does that mean that PTOs should be separately asking and paying for screening for anyone who's going to come contacting children at any PTO event at any time?
So there's not a charge for it, so there's no payment.
But is the district going to pay for it, even
They
if
get it
it's,
for free
We run them for free.
you run them for free?
Yeah.
as a nonprofit.
Yeah, ICHAT does them for free for us. The state of Michigan lets us, we sign into their database and just run the information you put on your form and it's done.
It's just a good practice. I mean, you're not going to get everybody, obviously, but
We
Try
want to get
to.
as many as we can.
Try to get
So
as
somebody's
many.
going to work at book fair, they should fill out a screening form.
Yeah.
Should.
But I mean, just your volunteer base should do it at the beginning of the year, each year.
Yeah.
Like the officers and the main
Yeah.
people, like the
Your main
core.
group of volunteers, and then, if you know that there's new volunteers coming in, we'd like you to run one on them. I know some of them get missed, and it's not going to be the end of the world, but we'd like to catch as many as we can.
So that,
Is your form digital? So I just moved here 4 months ago, and like in Colorado, everybody does, but it's digital, which is really nice. So if you say you check a mark on a piece of paper that you're interested in volunteering, they send you a form, whether you ever show up or not, and it's just digital. You can click on it and it goes back to the
It's
school.
not on the district level, and I don't know the PTOs. What they're gonna do.
How do we, so.
It is online.
How do we,
It's
how do we
online.
get access to this?
It's online on our website, thebeachofschools.org. If you just search by the word volunteer, you'll probably find the link. Many of the PTOs have it posted on theirs, probably because of the Science Olympiad, so you can probably find it pretty easily.
Well, the science look at it's every year, you don't have to do it every year. Do you really want this every year then?
Okay, the next important coverage to have as a PTO would be, and this is a big exposure of yours, this is the non-owned and hired automobile coverage, 1 million per occurrence. So what non-owned and hired automobile coverage is that you all drove here today in your personal cars, I'm assuming, right? You all have personal insurance for your vehicles. We live in a no-fault state. Should you get in an accident on the way here, which is really on PTO business, kill somebody, you're at fault, your insurance, and you're sued, your insurance is going to respond first, your personal insurance. Once those limits are exhausted, then it comes to the 1 million here. All right. That's like the biggest exposure of most volunteer organizations is the non-owned and hired auto. And there's a lot of claims in that area because volunteers get together and they do stuff and drink and get in cars after. And I'm not saying that you folks do that, but it's a very common claim. So it's important to have that coverage.
So, say I get together with a friend of mine and we're talking about PTO business, we're also talking about our kids, and we're talking about...
Yeah, it's not really official PTO business.
Right, so would that be covered if we are...
No, it's really not. You're not on official, you're not on the clock, if you will, right? You're just talking. So, but
What
if
if we
it's a meeting, if you got a meeting
meetings?
set and you got, this is, you're headed to a meeting and you get in discovery because you killed someone on the way there and they say, what were you doing? Well, I was there to have a meeting with my other PTO. Oh, you're on PTO business. This is how attorneys work, right? They're looking for that money. Let's just say you only have $50,000 limit of insurance on your auto. Well, it's only $50,000. Guess what? They're going to clean that up, and then they're coming right here. So that's how this is how this works from an attorney perspective.
And if a PTO did not have that coverage, then what? What's the
You're
consequence?
they can sue you if you're found at fault, and whatever. There's the courts will decide who's going to pay.
Then aren't you covered under the APS?
I'm not saying that...
Not if it's a non-event. If it's a non-PTO event, if it's a true PTO event that they were going to, then we're not talking about this. You're over here. The non-owned and hired would pick up over here.
So if you're going to a fall festival or your auction at your school, that's covered by AAPS. But if you're just coming to like this thing,
No, if you're coming here.
I'll come in here.
That's
But
it.
if you're going to meet the PTO for drinks at the Carlisle Grill, that's not. That might be covered under your PTO insurance.
Right. That's
Okay.
this. That's this.
Or a PTO budget meeting in the summer at somebody's house. Really?
No, that would be PTOs.
No, right here. Budget meeting, it's a general, that's, you have to have a budget, right? It's all part, and the budget's for what? The district, your budget, right?
Even if that's not an official meeting, they're just getting together to talk.
Well, I think it's an official meeting if it's a budget meeting. If you're just getting together to do stuff and talk about the budget, then that's not really an official meeting. So you're talking on official business over here.
Okay.
So always have an agenda is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
She's smart. Mr. President. Right.
Well, this raises the question again of the relationship, and this is why I'm confused. First of all, the reason why Carlene said what she did earlier is the PTO Council is not an authority over the PTOs. It's a membership corporation of which PTOs are members.
Sure.
So the relationship is flipped. Secondly, every PTO or PTSO is an independent 501c3 public charity.
That's fine.
So how do you determine what's official business and whether if it's official PTO business but not district business? That's what I don't understand.
Well, I think it's pretty clear in my mind that if the PTO is supposed to meet monthly to talk about what the things that they do in relationship to how it relates to the district here, the events that you're going to do, the planning for what you're going to do, etc., then I would develop your agendas, as you said, all around the stuff that you're doing for the district. Now, if you're talking offline in there about something that's unrelated, the fact is you all gathered there for PTO and our public school district initiatives.
See, that's the thing. They're initiatives for the PTO, which is a charity.
Right?
They may turn around and then give money to the district, but they're not under the authority of the district in any way. That's what I don't
They're insured by
understand.
the district as an insured. They fall under the definition as an insured.
We're certain about that, because it used to be that PTOs were not independent charities.
Right. And it used to be that the PTOs were, for the most part, excluded from these policies, district policies.
Okay.
And they made them all by, not the district here per se. I'm not sure the history on that. The PTOs have always been covered here from a district perspective. For district, for school-based business.
Yes.
Right, it's always been protected, but many districts do not cover, in this policy, do not cover their PTOs, and they make them buy, their own standalone insurance. PTO Today is I saw your thing there, PTO Today is sitting there, they have their insurance, you can go out and buy it, whatever. But I hope that answers your question. Again, you just look at it, if you're on official PTO business that's in relationship to what the PTO is doing for the district, then it's going to be covered under this. Then all the actions and stuff you do are going to be covered under here.
When you're saying what the PTO does for the district, that's via the school, right? So what the PTO
Sure.
is doing for its school, that is then on behalf of the broader
Yeah.
district. But can you give an example of something that wouldn't be then connected with school? I know you did at the beginning, but I've sort of gotten lost.
What was one example? We talked about the PTO going down to the soup kitchen.
Yeah.
To go serve soup at the soup kitchen. But that's not official. That's not district business.
It's a community event.
Right, community event.
There's a situation, I think, that's likely to come up, and that's the PTO thrift shop, that they're asking for PTOs to supply volunteers to help reduce the bottom line. That's to kind of, it's a totally different entity. The reason why we support it is because they support us. They support the school, the PTOs.
Yeah.
Or in theory.
You have a thrift shop?
They have their own insurance too?
Yeah, but
Don't
if you
they
guys-
come under their insurance fund when we?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking. If I was to go
Yeah.
volunteer at the PTO thrift shop, it would be because there's some benefit that's being provided to my PTO. And so I'm representing my PTO,
Right.
volunteering there. Is the district going to cover that?
I don't think so, I think that's
Yeah.
under the PTO.
So
Wouldn't that be the same situation with the soup kitchen? If we're all going to go volunteer at the soup kitchen, would the soup kitchen's policy cover us?
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is money's tight, where money, donations are down. When I notified my PTO, hey, I'm going to this insurance talk, they're like, they're taking money away from us, and now we have to buy, like,
Right.
how much do we have to get? Like, what's the bare
what I wanna
minimum?
make
Yeah.
Which you have over there, but I'm thinking, what is it, my eyesight's,
Sure.
NOHA,
Well, I'm not even done with all this.
yeah.
I'll tell you what, once
Yeah,
I get
no.
done with all this, I know he's probably looked at it. You can get all this coverage for about $300.
Okay.
So this isn't expensive stuff,
Mhm.
but it sure is expensive if you don't have it.
Well, it's expensive if your teacher wants you to supply, supplies for the year or needs something or,
Sure.
and like you're looking at insurance that we probably might not ever, when was the last time PTO was sued?
I can give you a whole
In Ann
book
Arbor.
of claims on PTOs.
Yeah.
It's lawsuits, yeah.
But we're covered by AAPS.
But we're covered by the
I'm
district.
not talking about your district laws, your district
Yeah.
suits. I'm talking about, in general, PTOs
Right.
have lots of claims,
But if most of our activities are approved by our principals,
right?
we're doing things for the kids with the
100%
school,
agree.
it's all covered, so.
Right here, you don't need
Yeah.
anything.
I'm just thinking of what my, you know,
It's
the
not-
board's gonna come back to me, like, why
Yeah.
do we need this? And so,
So, and one of the things that I propose y'all do is, someone asked me what other coverage you need, we're way off topic, but I would buy a master policy, if I were you. I would get a master policy that picked up all the PTOs, and you all share in the cost, and you all share in the limit. And then you know everyone's got it, everybody's covered, and it's all shared amongst 32 PTOs for a couple $100 a year.
How much is that?
Then you're done. Per PTO. Per PTO. So, right?
Well, we can talk about that.
You guys can figure that out.
We're actually looking into that right now, to
Yeah,
see
we
what the
can't tell you
feasibility
if
of
that's
that is
something.
right
Right.
now.
Can't
All
tell you.
the legal aspects of it. the
It can be done.
management of everything.
We know it can be done. We talked to several insurance companies that could do a master policy to cover all the PTOs, but that's kind of up to you guys if you want to do it that way. Or you can go to PTO Today, which you have some copies of there, and PTOs can buy their own policy online with a credit card, and select whatever coverage they want for very minimal dollars. The only thing I'd caution you with on PTO Today is they do not offer this coverage. Right there. And that's like your biggest risk.
Based on what you've seen in terms of claims. So what other coverage,
What do you need?
there's a list of,
Right.
the ones
So
that you
you
see
mentioned
on a
that.
bunch of other insurance websites.
Right?
Excess accidental medical.
Yeah, let me finish.
Okay.
Okay, so there's your GL, there's the sexual abuse, there's the auto piece. Then you'd have your property. If you have a couple $1,000s worth of goods, or a laptop, or any property that you have, furniture, fixtures, etc. Maybe, I'm assuming most of it's probably owned by the school anyway, so you really don't have any property. But if you have books or props and stuff that you have that the PTO's bought or it's been donated to you, then you'd insure it in case there was a fire or whatever, right? It's PTO property. And whatever your property value is,
But isn't it,
cost to replace,
isn't
that's
it
what you buy.
PTO property that we use, like if it's stored at the school and only used at school events, not covered by AAPS?
Well, who owns the property?
PTO actually owns the property.
Wouldn't be the PTO's, wouldn't be the AAPS,
Okay.
because they never bought it.
what if it's donated to the school, then it's the school's insurance?
It's donated to the PTO.
No, I mean, like the PTO bought one of those coffee makers for the teachers and donated it to the teacher lounge.
And it's school property,
It's school property then.
Yeah,
and it's covered.
yeah.
Where does alcohol come into this?
One step. Let me finish that. So the property is whatever your value is, right? Whatever your value of the property is, you insure it for its replacement cost. And then we have this thing called crime, or employee dishonesty, or whatever you want to call it. So if you got a cash box and someone steals cash out of it, or you've had checks are kited, whatever, you determine whatever level of crime you need. $3,000, $5,000, nothing. You guys decide what you want. But most PTOs have anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 of crime coverage. That would cover some lost money or stolen goods or whatever. Properties at replacement costs, whatever it would cost you. And then we have the volunteer accident, excess medical, right? So what that has to do with is, even though the volunteers are covered here, and teachers and what have you, like the teachers and people that are involved in this situation, the teachers themselves are covered under workers' compensation. So if there's an injury here, they're covered in the course of doing their work, they were injured at work, that's workers' compensation. You as volunteers, if you're injured in the course of doing your volunteer work, it's your own personal insurance that is responding, and or an excess volunteer medical policy. Okay. So most of these are like $25,000. And that would be, let's say you're having that soup kitchen event, and one of your volunteers is down there, or you as an individual are down there, you're hurt medically, for whatever reason. Your personal medical insurance would either respond first and or in what they call shared shared benefit with this benefit here, depending on what the nature of the claim was or whatever. So that's what volunteer excess medical is. It's really to help your volunteers. One second, I'll give you another example on this. So I have a very large not-for-profit in Oakland County called the Judson Center. It's like a $40 million not-for-profit that does foster care adoption. They probably have 2,500 volunteers for events and all kinds of things. So, and the best example to give for the volunteer accident situation is there's a ton of volunteers at their events. Of course, they're not covered under workers' compensation because they're not employees, right? So, however, if they were hurt by a vendor or whatever, they would be covered under the Judson's policy as a volunteer. But if they're at a hall prepping for, let's say, a gala event, and they're up on a ladder hanging streamers, and they fall off, that there's no coverage for that. And that's where the volunteer excess medical kicks in. So they have Judson has a $25,000 underlying policy for volunteers, plus $1 million catastrophic situation. So if someone fell off that ladder and became a quadriplegic or something like that, there'd be another level of catastrophic coverage that would respond for them. Now the reason they carry those bigger limits is because their volunteers are incredibly important to them. I mean, there's 2,500 of them, and they help at a lot of events. So it's kind of like it's almost like a perk for your volunteers to have them know that there's some medical coverage there for them in the event they get hurt at the event. Sorry, I digress a little.
That's good.
Yes.
Can you talk about the inflatables issue? Because I know that's been a hot topic.
Okay.
So as long
Yep.
if the vendor has insurance.
Yeah, I'll get to that one. So, and then the last thing I think to talk about here is an umbrella. So, we'll talk about the DNO. Yeah. So the umbrella. So an umbrella is another layer of coverage that goes over top of your general liability. It would go over your sexual abuse and molestation. It would go over your non-owned and hired automobile coverage, and it wouldn't go over anything else. So it gives you, so if you had a $1 million per occurrence, $2 million aggregate, and you had a $1 million umbrella here, you would now have a $2 million per occurrence, $3 million aggregate. You'd have $2 million of non-owned and hired. Your sexual abuse would fall under your GL. So this is a very inexpensive policy that adds another layer of coverage. The most expensive layer of coverage on all insurance policies is obviously the first million, because that's what gets hit. In all the years I've been in insurance, I've never had an umbrella claim. Never had an umbrella claim. So it's really just kind of sleep coverage. The district here has a $10 million umbrella. Yeah, $10 million umbrella here in the district. So I want to go back and address the inflatables. Or unless do you have another question about kind of, the last thing here is D&O insurance. So directors and officers. So that protects the directors and officers in the event that someone takes suit against the PTO. Someone sues the PTO and its officers and directors for whatever, sexual abuse, molestation, or some crazy thing. So those are and you just get a $1 million limit here, and there'd be deductibles associated with it. But if you kind of plugged all these things into that PTO today, it comes out to be like, I don't know, $280, $300, maybe a little more.
600.
Is it? But not all these. No, you may have picked bigger limits or something, did you?
I was trying to go, I just used the little calculator, so
Yeah,
I can't tell you the specific options I chose, but I didn't feel like I was being splurging.
Yeah, so, splurging, that's a good word. So I think the goal would be to reduce that cost as you try to buy it try to buy coverage as a group. So you'd be able to, reduce the cost.
My question about that is, if you buy it just for your PTO at your school, and you have your executive board that's kind of the responsible parties and you're covering them, if we do a shared insurance policy over all 32 schools, are we all sharing the responsibility for any one school's?
Yes.
So that's now suddenly making a bigger.
Well, that's up to you guys to decide. You're just sharing the limit. Like I'm hearing in here, that you never have a claim. So if you never have a claim, why not share all the limit? And what you do, so you just share the limit. And keeping in mind that that's your decision to make. I'm telling you the limit's shared. You've identified that you're sharing with 32. And, if one school's a bad apple here and they don't decide to do things properly and there's a $5 million claim, it's going to wreck the whole program for all the PTOs, So it's like there's things to do and things to consider with it when you're doing an aggregate policy. Do you save money? Yes. Are you sharing limit? Yes. Do you have less limit if something happens? Yes. But there's ways to protect against that by buying a bigger umbrella. So instead of 1 million, maybe buy 5 million. And it goes over these things. But as I told you, I've never had an umbrella claim before. So to date, I've never had an umbrella claim. Not to say that it wouldn't happen. That's the fundamental reason why you buy insurance, is to protect against the catastrophic. But
I also had a question related to what you just talked about. So I didn't quite get the distinction between having a PTO meeting where you're at someone's house discussing an agenda for your PTO versus at a place of business. You were saying that if it was at someone's house and you're doing PTO business, it would still be under the AAPS policy, but if you were at a place of business.
I think if it's an official planned meeting, whether it's at a business or at home,
okay,
it doesn't matter.
Okay, but if you're socially gathering, you happen to be PTO people, and you happen to talk about PTO business,
that's
not covered
PTO
in
business,
this.
and nor would it really be under here.
Unless you have an agenda.
Nor would it really be under your own insurance, because you're just PTO people getting together to do whatever.
Yeah.
That's not the purpose of insurance, right? I want to address the inflatables question because you've waited patiently. So the deal with inflatables is the insurance industry. In the last 5 years, the inflatable claims have been ridiculous. And what's happened really is it's related to the weather. And you know how our weather is around these days. It's really crazy weather patterns, whether it be wind or wet or lightning or whatever occurs. But numerous inflatables have been completely lifted up in the air, full of children, and deposited back down on the ground. And a lot of injuries and a lot of lawsuits. So the issue with inflatables is the district is not going to approve an inflatable. And actually, a lot of these insurance policies, if you're looking to insure an event, your own event, they will also not provide coverage for an inflatable.
When you look online, it's specifically excluded from these types of policies.
Yeah.
They specifically say inflatables not covered.
What if it's an inside event?
Doesn't matter.
The industry is not regulated, they're not cleaned properly, there are staph infections that come from these.
It's amazing.
I mean,
Kids get sick in them, they never wash them.
in 2003, it was about 5,000 incidents, in 2013, it was 17,000.
So you can see how that's, a lot of insurance companies are like,
So related to that, the most recent example I have is our past spring ice cream social. We did rent inflatables, and from the vendor we rented from, for like an extra $100, you could buy additional insurance. So either are they still finding like the one insurance company that will cover it, or is that not a valid? You know what I mean? So I'm trying to figure out what that is.
it's insurance. It's insurance, and in a situation here where you're going to do the event, let's say you're doing an event, and even though it's a district approved event, but they're not going to approve of the inflatable.
Correct.
So the inflatable is going to, anything to do with the inflatable is going to fall out of this and then fall into your own insurance.
Okay.
Which is not going to cover it. And then you're going to go to your vendor, your inflatables vendor, and say, I need a certificate of insurance that has 1 million, 1 million per occurrence and 2 million aggregate general liability coverage. And I want you to name my PTO as an additional insured. So that's that risk transfer thing we talked about.
Okay.
But that's going to be your decision, the PTO's decision, to go ahead and have an inflatable at your event.
So does that mean the rest of the event is not covered under
No.
APS?
No, the rest of the event's covered.
The rest of the event is covered, just anything relating to the inflatable will not be. When it comes to the district. It may be covered with your own insurance, I don't know. And if it isn't, then you know it's covered by virtue of buying a $100 rider policy or $100 from the vendor. And even then, it's shaky because,
I mean, if we know there's a risk, why would you want to take that?
yeah.
There's all kinds of other things that are enjoyable that you can have at carnivals and festivals. Why go for the inflatable?
It does draw people in, and that's when the kids.
It does, but
want
there's
to come.
lots of other fun things that draw kids into it.
And not to be rude, but you know, sharing food is.
Yeah.
We did at Carpenter, do you remember, June? We did, we dressed the kids up like zombies. It was the year that zombies became crazy. We had lines up and down the halls. We bandaged the kids, we painted them. They thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And I don't think we had an inflatable that year because we'd gone 2 years in a row where we had to cancel them because of weather. And it was so frustrating and so much work that we just said, this year we're not doing it, we went with that. And we had a wonderful carnival.
So again, on the inflatables, if it's that big a deal and it's a big draw, then you just have them and then you just know that you have the risk.
But when you say even that's shaky, like their own insurance.
It is.
Because their insurance won't cover it?
No, well, you're 3 steps away from a claim. You're not getting any support here.
Right.
You're not getting any support from your own insurance. Now you're relying on a third-party person's insurance.
And that's the shaky
You don't,
part.
yeah, you don't know
You're
if
opening
it's
yourself
good or
up
bad.
to-
I mean,
Unless you like really read that policy very carefully.
yeah, you don't know. You know,
Something in their
they're going to
policy.
give you a certificate of insurance. That's cool, but is it what's all covered?
Or if there's a claim and it exceeds them.
It's just
So
risky.
can you also purchase special event insurance?
You can.
For one specific event?
You can.
On a specific day? Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you can go to a company called K&K, online, K&K Insurance, one-day special event policies.
And
Buy
it's
it
one
with
of
a
the
credit
ones
card.
that specifically cited no inflatables. though.
Yeah, but you look at those policies,
look.
most of them will exclude an inflatable.
And if they're excluding them, that should tell you something. That should-
So, yeah, but special event policy, one-day shot, they're good. Depending on how many you have, they're expensive. The ultimate goal is to have all your events covered under, your current policy, right? So you don't have to go out and buy single one-off event policies. But if you don't decide not to buy the insurance, or buy insurance, then yes, you can buy one-day policies that provide, GL and all the things that you would.
That would be like for the high school dance thing, like if the PTO is not buying it for everything else in the school.
Yeah, we bought one-day special event policies here.
Or something.
Yeah,
Seems like there was one that's on.
maybe a walk or a run or something like that. I can't remember what it was. Maybe, Shamrocks and shenanigans. All right.
I heard the lady up in front mention $600, you found $600. Was that for the year?
Yeah. Annual.
Was that through PTO today?
I looked at PTO today, but I also looked at other vendors, and I think there might have been like a $450 option, but it didn't have the same,
Yeah,
the
level
same
of
coverage,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, and both of those, the ones that you're looking at, do not have that. That's the one thing you gotta check. And I called PTO today about this a number of years ago, and I asked them, why don't you cover that? It's like the number one exposure. They're like, exactly, that's why we don't cover it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So, does inflatables, like, we rented some inflatables at Scarlet last year. One was a pitching machine, and one was, I don't know, it had some air, so like there'd be a ball floating, the kids had to try to aim to knock the ball down. Is that also excluded?
No.
Those are okay.
Okay.
The inflatables we're talking about are really the bouncy
Right, I know, but they
right?
were called inflatables,
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
that's my,
Yeah.
because they are.
Yeah, inflatable.
The inflatable
Yeah.
attraction
Yeah.
obstacle things.
So they are divided up.
Yeah, you just have to use your discretion in thinking about something like that, if there's.
But I mean, I'm talking about for coverage
Right,
purposes.
no,
if
yeah, well,
someone-
that's what it boils down to, is that if there's kids jumping around in it, That's not what we're looking for. The bungee cords or the obstacle course and all the things where the kids are like running around in that big inflatable.
I'm talking about from an insurance perspective, like
So
when they come back and say, oh, that's an inflatable.
No.
No, you're okay with
No.
that one. And
That's
if you ran into that, just have them call me and I would tell them.
Okay.
Now, we're still gonna ask you to get that vendor's certificate of insurance.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
So this is not an inflatable question, but I have a question about this volunteer form. We have volunteers, let's say, at the all-school all-night party, and it turns out that one of our volunteers sexually assaults a student, but never completed that volunteer form. Are we held liable?
Well, the district insurance is going to respond.
The
Or
Yeah.
whatever insurance is
Okay,
going
I'm
to
just worried about this volunteer form that seems.
No,
Yeah.
the volunteer form is an extra layer of protection, so we can check the backgrounds of all these people that are coming into our buildings. I kind of want to know who's working with our kids, kind of a thing.
Right.
So that's what that's about. Now,
Yeah.
there's going to be volunteers in the building that haven't
Fill
filled
out a
out this
form.
form, because nobody's going to stand at the door and say, have you filled
Right,
it? It doesn't
right.
happen.
So that if
Realistically, I
something were to
understand that.
happen, they'd still be covered
It's
under
not going
AAP.
to decline the coverage, but what it's going to create is an underwriting problem at the next renewal and saying, hey, we had one of your volunteers.
Right.
Didn't do a background check on them. Oh, by the way, we just looked at the background check and they had had sexual abuse in their background. What were you doing with having them volunteer? So now it becomes an underwriting issue where the insurance company says, either we're going to charge this much more premium because your controls aren't in place, or you know what, we don't even want it on the account anymore. That
I
could
do
happen.
have a question about, I mean, it's a little shocking to hear that there really isn't, it sounds like nobody really fills out volunteer forms. I mean, is there a more protocol or something? Because, you know, just even as a parent, that's crazy to think, like, most people aren't even filling, I'm like literally floored. Like, I come from a district, like, it doesn't matter. You check that, even if you never volunteer, everybody
They should
has to
be
fill it.
filling them out. That's
I
the
just
bottom
want you to
line.
know, I filled it out every year since kindergarten, so.
And I did it
it's-
Carpenter too, I don't.
So it's not like, don't get the idea that it's some sort of rampant
Okay, I'm just like,
but it is,
But
but
let
it's
me-
true that there's not, that I'm aware of, a practice of
Well,
every.
Well, no, there
It's been
that's,
communicated to principals. Know that
But as a
the
freshman
people-
parent, this is the first time I'm hearing about a
Yeah,
volunteer
I'm
form.
surprised.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean,
I've never
I mean,
heard of it.
I'm in Huron, and this is the first time I've ever heard of it.
I mean, that's the
So-
distinction. If you are going to be volunteering in the building during the school day, they will make sure that you fill out a screening form.
I haven't, and I
But-
think the spirit shop.
Well, okay,
That's
see,
not
that's
true.
another thing. But then, what about the people who are collecting tickets outside the building? They're having direct contact with children, but the children are theoretically under the supervision of their parents, and you haven't actually set foot in the building, you're outside of school hours. Are those the same thing? And does that mean that every PTO needs to ask everyone who might ever volunteer for any event anywhere to fill out those things? And there did used to be a cost. That was one of the reasons why we didn't do it.
I
It wasn't a
didn't like
blanket
they're
policy.
free either.
They're free, there's
We,
no
I
cost.
thought it was $10.
Yeah, it was like $10.
There's no charge for them.
So that's,
So
we
we
can
can run them all
raise
day.
the information that none of us knew
Yeah.
is coming out. This is part of why we're doing
So,
this.
you know, we have all the U of M students and all the EMU students, all these people come in our buildings and we run like 400 or 500.
Johnson's got 2,500 volunteers. They screen every single one.
We should
Doesn't
have
matter
a
what they're
district
doing.
announcement
Yeah,
going
yes,
out,
yes,
email going out to the
yes.
parents saying if you are in the building and
Yeah.
volunteering,
And that's-
you have to submit
Well,
this
but-
by.
enforcement of it.
But that's the thing, is what if you're volunteering never in the building? I mean, there are a lot of people who volunteer for PTOs who never set foot inside the building and are never alone with students.
Get a volunteer form.
They should still have to
Okay,
fill out.
so that means that every PTO needs to have their own standard operating procedure to ask everyone. Well, no, the district only asks people if they volunteer in the building, if you're going to be unsupervised with students. At least that's how it used to be. I don't.
You're correct, it's if they're in the building, but.
And unsupervised, right? Because I've never filled one out.
Did you say field trip?
I've done field trips where I've met, but I'm not alone.
Well, if the
with
teacher is
children.
also there.
And that is a distinction, like if you want to work alone with a child, then you need to fill out the form.
Whether you're alone or there's a teacher present, you should fill out the
Yeah,
form.
like anytime, I don't know, I guess I'm just like, I feel like anytime you're with children, field trips, volunteering in the classroom, any kind of event
Yeah.
at school, like.
There's zero enforcement.
Any student
in my
contact should have a volunteer.
Well, it's, I think the only requirement is when you're gonna be alone with students. What I think Ann is saying is that they would like them to do that.
Everyone fill one out.
Well, there is, I mean, there is enforcement if you're gonna be in and working one-on-one with
Okay, I have
students.
two questions.
Yep.
They're two separate questions. You talked about crime, with
Yep.
petty theft. What about officers who are embezzling? That's one question.
That's crime.
That's still crime, but
Yeah.
you only need 2,500 to 5,000
Again,
coverage.
it's whatever you think you need
Okay.
to have.
And then what about trips that are outside of Ann Arbor, either within the state or out of state?
Regarding what?
Like, you know, you're taking a bus,
Like a field trip.
like a field trip or something.
What is it? Is it
A school trip, a school trip or an organization, science Olympiad, academic games.
Talking about like eighth grade.
Or eighth grade field trip
eighth
going to
grade.
Washington DC.
All right, so 8th grade field trip. That's part of this,
Okay.
right? And there's forms for that, but on if
Science
you're using
Olympiad
third-party
regional tournament.
transportation, you get a certificate of insurance from the third-party transporter. If you're using parents to transport, you get we have a form there for the parents' insurance and waive, right?
Yes.
Yep.
I think they always try to do district first before they
Right,
do
so we
transfer.
stick with the buses, so
Yeah.
again, an 8th grade field trip, volunteers, everyone falls under this.
Not for sporting events, because buses aren't provided in districts, so we have to drive kids to here, or drive kids to Scott, drive kids to Saline.
What?
Yeah, but you're.
For football team?
Nobody gets buses in the county. You have to go out of county to get a bus for athletics.
So you want to talk about getting, yeah, you're talking about the students going to athletic events?
Yeah.
Traveling to an athletic event? So if you have a student in a third-party transportation to an athletic event, you're driving the football team to Saline?
Yep.
It's covered. Here. And the district's also transporting them, are they not?
No.
Oh, well, who drives the bus?
Here.
There's no bus, it's carpool.
Let me just finish on the football team.
It's my Tahoe.
No bus.
Doesn't matter.
There's not a bus. The baseball team doesn't, the basketball team.
All right, so they travel in cars.
Transported to, but not
So
picked up.
Yeah.
to the event, the district is covered. The district covers the students, the coaches, whatever.
Even if they're in my car.
Your insurance responds first, then this, no fault state, right? And the students, coaches, whatever, covered. From the event, once the event's over, on your own.
But we have to get the kids back to school.
It depends on what, you know,
Picking them up.
I'm involved with my kids
I had
in
to get
Skyline
home then.
Sports. They finish the swim event and they come home with me. They don't come back to the school. My kids come home with
Some
me.
instances we were driving them back to the school.
We had games in Walled Lake where we had to drive back. We had to drive the kids back to school, so we should be covered on that.
Well, if they
Because the
have to
bus
come,
would-
if they have to come back to the school, you would be covered.
Well, but not every parent can get to Walled Lake at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So before, where the bus would take them to and from the game.
Right.
And we would all pick them up at school. Now it's my personal vehicle
Right.
taking them to and from the game, so I should be covered to and from the game. Yes?
Your insurance responds first, so
And
it's
then
your
AA.
personal vehicle, and if your insurance limits are exhausted, then here.
So what you're saying is when you
So what you're
volunteer
saying
to
is
drive,
Don't put your kid in sports.
well,
That's not what I'm saying at all,
Well,
because
but-
all my kids are in sports.
No, but I don't want my insurance to
well, but that's what you're assuming
skyrocket.
when you volunteer. So
That's
that's what
right.
he's trying to delineate. Is
That's
like that's
the-
an
that's the state.
You're
That's the
assuming
state.
that. Yeah.
It's a no-fault state.
So that's an education piece that maybe that needs to be better communicated.
Yeah,
That's
so.
a liability assumption that parent volunteers as drivers are making.
They all take on. It's not that the kids aren't covered, or
Right.
but
There's
you're-
coverage, but
you're volunteering to transport them from the school to an event. That's great. But and the district's going to cover you if your stuff runs out, and if you have to bring them back to the school under whatever the rules are, then whatever. But like I was saying with my child, she finishes a swim meet in Clarkston. and I bring her home. There's no coverage for her.
We have a lot of students at Huron who have to be picked up back at school.
So then I would say if you have to transport them back to the school because that's part of the situation, then that's going to be a district thing.
Oh, okay, it's 8:15, and there are a lot of questions. Should we have a part 2 of this, or what do you think?
I can keep going.
But in terms of, we're going to have to, we need
okay.
to wrap up just as far as time is concerned. Do you want to keep going with this topic? Do we want to break and turn to the volunteer?
I would recommend, since there are a lot of questions and there are the particulars, I would say we should take this back to our individual school PTOs with kind of this beginning conversation and then get more input from individual buildings, teams, and maybe some other examples,
Yes.
just to clarify, and
Great idea.
then have a part 2 to kind of hash it out on a...
Well, I want to, don't overthink it. If you have stuff that you're doing for the Ann Arbor Public Schools as what you do, why you're truly volunteering to do this stuff, you are covered by the district.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, so if you have your senior online party, your ice cream social at the school, other than inflatables, we have all this covered over here on PTO. Well,
this is if you want to buy your own coverage.
right, but I mean, that is a.
It's
Yeah.
the district is picking the PTOs up for all the things that are PTO related and have to do with the district. So it's thinking about all the scenarios and the situations. It's simple. Just think about, why am I really doing this? It's for the kids. It's for the school. I want them to have a great environment, and I'm involved as a parent to make those things happen. With organization, doing things and helping and donating and raising money. That's all that. That's like 99.9% of what you do.
But it doesn't cover the NOAA, it doesn't cover.
Yes, it does.
How about the property then? It doesn't cover the property.
Well, that's your own property.
Right, and also crime, which is the PTO's
Yeah,
property,
right.
which is cash, or the DNO.
No,
Correct?
you're covered as
DNO by
you're
case
covered.
covered.
But
Yes.
not the crime and the property.
Right.
So it does not cover crime or property, but it does cover the directors and officers?
Yes.
If the directors and officers get sued?
Yes. Insured. The PTO is defined as an insured on the district policies.
Okay.
So, and that has to do with all the coverage at the district, with the exception of if you own property, that's your stuff. You decide whether you want to insure it or not. The crime part, it's questionable, but more than likely.
Just 2 cents, because there's been a lot of questions about what's not covered. We purchased insurance at Mitchell last month because we're entering into a relationship with Sodexo to sell concessions at various events at U of M, like the football games and the basketball games, and it was specifically not covered. And that is, and even though it is, we're earning money for the kids without them, it's just a parent event, but it is something we decided we'd rather do than buy a lot of pizza boxes and things like that, or magazines. And it's lucrative, and we're growing at a rate that we need to keep up with our growing population. So we talked to Ann, and we discovered that these types of events for us to cover are not covered under district insurance, and that's why we sought out to PTO today and bought our own policy for $155 for a year. We'll cover it in only one of these events. It does not have all of this, but in even our conversations, we decided that it was good enough for now, and that maybe moving forward, if there's if we decide to do a PTOC policy, we'll do that. So yes, most is covered. But read the fine print, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's great. That's a great way to look at it. Is you all know what you do. Just assess your own risk, whether you think you need this stuff or not, or if it's not going to be covered.
What we can afford to.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's what you can afford. So it's perfect.
All right. So any other questions? You can send that to my email, or do you want to send them to yours?
You can email me. It's judgea@a2schools.org.
Anything else?
Thank you.
You're going to give me a 500 eye test tomorrow, Ann.
So,
kind of in a confusing world when it comes to insurance, because there's claims, I said before, claims take on their own characteristics, and there's things that trigger coverage, and there's things that don't trigger coverage. So, kind of the word on most insurance stuff is it covered? The answer is it depends. But talking in generalities, these are very common types of structures. And again, 99.9% of everything you're doing is going to be covered by the district program, without question. And all I encourage you to do, if you're not sure, if you have an event that you're looking to do or whatever, then you just call. And then we'll get a definitive answer on it. And I'm not the decision maker on it. The insurance company is the decision maker on it. We work with the insurance company with what's brought forth by the district for us to communicate and get their approval. And we don't fib to our insurance company. So, we're pretty careful on making sure that we communicate accordingly with what the risks and exposures are at a particular school.
So do you have recommendations for different insurance companies that we can look at?
I mean, when you're buying the PTO insurance, there's just so many to talk to. I mean, there's Philadelphia Insurance, there's Travelers, there's Selective. I mean, I could name 1,500 of them. There's really no one, because it's such a broad appetite, there's so many people that do it.
Okay.
But that being said, you want to make sure when you're looking at the provider that they have these kind of minimum things to you that's available to you.
Okay.
And then make your own economic decision. Do I need it? Or do I want it? Do I need it? Can I afford it?
Because I have a girl that every year she shops like various insurances for me personally, for my home and auto, and every year my stuff goes down. So I can go to her and say, this is what we need.
Yeah.
Shop for us?
Yeah, she could find something. I mean, it's really, you can find it out on the internet. Most of it's all...
Trust me, I'll get that out to you guys next week.
Yeah.
I don't have her email on hand, but boy, oh boy, she's going to be a happy camper.
Most of it is all available on the internet to purchase yourself. It's not like she would have or anyone has a magic market when it comes to
Well, but she does that. Like, she
These are
has that
samples,
for,
and
she
whoever
does that.
wants it, I don't have enough for everybody.
Instead of going to Nationwide and, all the
Sure.
individuals and doing it all myself, she takes the time and does it.
Yeah.
So.
Great.
Aside from Mitchell sharing that positive additional insurance information, would you disagree with the takeaway that what I heard you say is, based on the information that we've provided to you about what the PTOs do individually, it does not sound like we really need to purchase a separate insurance policy unless we're doing something like the inflatables or something that Mitchell did specifically for outside events. Is that correct?
That's the way I look at it.
Okay.
So you have to identify yourself what each individual PTO is doing and how you're exposing yourself, your volunteers, and your own direct responders as it relates to that specific PTO you're involved in. You don't do anything else other than what would be normally covered under the school. You don't need anything.
Thank you so much for all your...
Thank you very much. I hope it was helpful.
There's two of them.
Yeah.